Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid Butt, and we will be talking today about two important topics. The first is, of course, the meeting of the FATF, the plenary meeting that is going to be held from the 19th, that is tomorrow, to put Pakistan on the white list or to maintain it on the grey list or otherwise. That is going to be decided in this plenary session of the FATF that will be held, of course, tomorrow in Paris. We will be knowing more details about that as and when we come along. But when we look at how Pakistan is moving ahead as far as all the efforts, all the points that were put forward also by the FATF, Pakistan is going and moving in the right direction. So let's see how that happens. Our second story of the day is the international pressure that is coming on India as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned. We know what is happening. We know what is happening since decades and since August 5th, 2019, when the Article 370 was scrapped, and of course in December last year also when new acts were entered in the Indian government to put more pressure on minorities, especially Muslim minority of India. That also has put India in a very strange place, and there are countries that are, of course, backing Pakistan's stance on Kashmir, of which Turkey is one. And Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish Prime Minister, was here, and the Turkish President, and he was, of course, taking Pakistan's stance. And the Turkish ambassador was reprimanded by the Indian government, and he was called in the offices in New Delhi. Well, we'll talk about these issues. Let's begin with the first issue, that is Pakistan and financial terrorism. To talk more about that, we've been joined by Usman Chauhan. You're a political economist. Usman, thank you very much to have joined us. Usman, this is not the first time that Pakistan has been put on the FATF list. Before, in 2012, it was put in the FATF list between 2012 and 2015, and then it was taken out in 2016. Now, since 2018, it is again on the grey list. But it hasn't moved from grey to black because Pakistan has taken the steps in the right direction. Now there's again the plenary meeting of the FATF that is happening in Paris from tomorrow. What are Pakistan's chances?
Pakistan's chances are very strong that it may go to the white list. In the worst case scenario, it will be given an extension on the grey list. There is absolutely no possibility in my mind that there's blacklisting. Blacklisting is always a very remote incident anyways. There are only two countries on the blacklist that are notable, Iran and North Korea. To be put in the same category as them in terms of financial opaqueness would be actually a question on the FATF rather than on us. We came with 5 recommendations walking into this plenary being passed, and now, since Beijing last month, it has been decided that progress has been made on 9 more of those steps. The details of those we can discuss, but what it means is that more and more actors in society and institutions are being integrated into a financial architecture of oversight. Some of those include the judiciary, the state bank's audits, and so forth. So what we're seeing is a more comprehensive plan done in this country, implemented across more stakeholders, and that is a very positive sign that I believe the world is responding to positively.
All right. But there are, of course, other actors such as India that does not want Pakistan to come out of the grey list. In fact, it wants it to go in the black list. But on the other hand, we've got a very strong proponents of Pakistan who back Pakistan's stance, which include China, which include Turkey, which include Malaysia, among other countries that are seeing the progress in Pakistan and are backing it. Recep Tayyip Erdogan was here in Pakistan, and he said that he is going to back Pakistan's stance to come out of the grey list as well. How important are these countries' backings as well for Pakistan to come out of that list?
The backings of countries are very important because of the way that the FATF is designed. It's designed to have consensus building and voting for or against other nations. So the fact that we have 3 vocal backers, the 3 you mentioned, China, Malaysia, and Turkey, is a very strong sign. Now there is a gray zone. I mean to say that there are countries that are dispassionate and want to see progress in Pakistan. They are neither our well-wishers nor ill-wishers. Exactly. They want to see us do well, and that is the pool within the membership of the FATF that we are targeting. We have made a very proactive effort in world capitals to articulate our cause. What we're trying to communicate is that it's irrealistic to transform a society overnight, and that the deadlines of the FATF were impossible as it is. And yet the kind of progress that we have made through collective will, through government direction, through integration and coordination among our stakeholders is tremendous for any nation. Because now we're being held to a standard of an OECD country, a developed country. We are in fact quite a ways away from complete development at the standard of an OECD country, but the fact is that we are moving positively in that direction.
However, when you talk about moving positively in the right direction, there are 27 points that the FATF has proposed to us that we need to implement ourselves on. Out of those, how many points have been implemented? I've heard 14 have been fully implemented, around 11 were partially implemented. Implementation on 2, they say it's more or less not possible. Will that be accepted by the FATF?
Yes, it depends on what we're looking at as a target. If we're looking at avoiding blacklisting, then certainly we've passed that target. As far as grey listing goes, the more points we are able to score, the better. I say score because there's a lot of subjectivity in this. When you say that you have done something like getting your financial monitoring unit to do assessments, that is quite objective. Something more like having checks at the airport, that is quite objective. At the same time, how informed is, for example, the judiciary or the state bank's audit or other things like cash smuggling? Those are almost degrees along a spectrum. We are arguing that we have done a lot on those fronts, that our judiciary is very well informed, that our state bank does very robust audits. Now it is up to our audience as well to get along to our side of the program.
Now, when you talk of the audience that we need to put up on our side of the program so that we can come out of the grey list, how much importance is also of the other actors that are also present that are trying to convince the countries? I mean, there's the government for one, that is implementing the measures that the FATF has asked. Then there are the influencers, like the countries that we are friendly with. Then there are other people that see that there are scholars who are watching us with a lot of interest. And there was a whole article on the different scholars around the world who've been watching how Pakistan has been implementing the points that have been asked by the FATF, of which some are neutral, some are positive, 1 or 2 are negative. Will that influence the FATF's decision as well, or is it just the countries that are present there?
You can say that to a degree there may be some tacit influence, but generally the FATF's members would like to think that they arrive at the conclusions in a dispassionate manner, and that they come there doing their homework and they look at the evidence that is presented to them. We presented a very large document in Beijing. We're going here with a lot of arsenal of evidence, and similarly there's a lot of questions, a large questionnaire of things that we showed we have made progress on, to a certain degree, to a large degree, depending on each question.
Let's talk about one such topic that has recently happened. Hafiz Saeed has been convicted on 2 counts. Will that also move in Pakistan's favor as far as the FATF rating is concerned?
This is an excellent question, because when you work against banned outfits, you are working against individuals and you're working against organizations. As far as the organizational aspect goes, we had already done a lot of good work. For example, we had streamlined or mainstreamed the seminaries into our education departments at the provincial level. Similarly, we had taken their health provision and their clinics, their dispensaries under our health departments provincially. So that was already being done. Then there's the question of the individual. As far as the individual goes, I think it's a very symbolic gesture. That's because there was a lot of heat brought from the United States and India on a particular individual. Now, individuals do not have as much effect as these countries would like to think. That's just a shorthand they use. But it is symbolic. The Assistant Secretary for State for South Asia, Alice Wells, said this was a very important gesture. She publicly said that India has also had to then mince words because the person that they had created such a hue and cry about has been put behind bars. The sentence has been read. And so they are in a bit of a nuisance value zone because they can create all the hue and cry they want. But as far as concrete steps are being done, we have done just about anything. And so all of the resistance that they will try to muster in this is very likely to fail.
Well, Usman, when we talk of the 27 points that have been proposed by the FATF, could you briefly go through those points?
Absolutely. It's always difficult to keep 40 points or 27 points in mind, so the way I frame it is in terms of stakeholders.
All right.
So the first thing is they ask about the financial monitoring unit. Do you have something that has assessments of risk and then goes against organizations based on a risk thing? Then they go ask that, do you inform your judiciary? Do you inform your financial institutions about the risks? Are they aware of it? Then does your state bank do audit of financial institutions? Then, because cash is something that is not detectable easily, do you have counterfeit or cash smuggling measures? We do. Do you have checks at the airport so that this stuff isn't taken abroad? We do. Similarly, do you have interprovincial and federal coordination among your mechanisms? One of the points that we've succeeded is that we do now. And so you can go across a list of things. Another one I'd like to mention is NGOs, non-government organizations. They call it NPOs, and they have a moniker DNFBI, and it's designated non-financial banking institutions. So do you have measures to make sure that these are streamlined? Well, we do. So those are examples, and what the best way to frame it for people who are not experts in the field is to look at all the stakeholders that would be involved in an architecture, and are we going step by step?
When you talk of stakeholders, let's talk about the different members. It's a huge body, the FATF. When should we expect a result on Pakistan from the FATF's meeting that starts tomorrow?
The formal announcement should be on the 21st.
All right.
But you will get your signals as soon as the 19th tomorrow. That'll give you an indication of where it's going. But we've already had an indication, because the Beijing meeting last month was already an indication that things are headed in the right direction.
All right. Thank you very much, Usman Chauhan. It was short, but it was very interesting and very informative. Even I got to know a lot of points from you. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. FATF's meeting is happening tomorrow. We all wish for Pakistan to come out of the grey list, of the watch list, and come on the white list. But we'll see, of course, by the 21st, inshallah. We hope for the best. Also, when we talk of pressure on India, let's talk about the international pressure that is coming on India on the Kashmir issue, whether it be Antonio Guterres or the other leaders. They've all been talking very openly about what is happening in India, whether it be Indian occupied Kashmir or other parts of India. Let's watch a small package, and then we'll return to talk more about it.
India's national make headlines. A day after India ruled out any role or scope of third-party mediation on Kashmir, reacting to UN Secretary-General offer to help. One thing is clear, the Kashmir's shadow loomed large over international engagements. Kashmir came up at the visit of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to Pakistan. Erdogan, addressing Pakistani parliamentarians, promised to back Pakistan in FATF, as well as refer to Kashmiris as brothers and sisters suffering because of India's action. Reacting sharply, India called upon the Turkish leadership not to interfere in India's internal affairs. And to make India's displeasure very clear, New Delhi issued a strong démarche to the Turkish government. These remarks reflect neither an understanding of history nor the conduct of diplomacy, said Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Ravish Kumar. They distort events of the past to a narrow-minded view of the present. Over the past few months, India has tried to rejig its strategy to deal with the mounting international concern over Kashmir. There is, of course, strong response from the government in keeping with India's nationalist image, but Indian diplomats across the world are also working behind the scenes to ensure that uncomfortable questions are not asked. The Indian position has been explained to stakeholders in capital cities across the world. Only last month, a draft resolution that was to come up for a vote in European Parliament to criticize India over Citizen Amendment Act and the lockdown on Kashmir was postponed at the 11th hour. Similarly, last month, 15 foreign envoys visited Kashmir, a trip participants characterized as tightly choreographed with no room for independent meetings.
You just watch this little package on the situation in India, as we know what's happening in occupied Kashmir and also in other parts of India with the CAA that has been implemented since last December. To talk more about that and the pressure that is being put on India, and it's really under that pressure because we see how the Turkish envoy has also been summoned to New Delhi for an explanation on what Recep Tayyip Erdogan said in Pakistan. We've been joined by Dr. Manzoor Afridi. Dr. Afridi Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Afridi, is India finally bearing the brunt of what it has done in Indian occupied Kashmir and the rest of India?
Surely, I think there are no two opinions because India has done a huge mistake, I would say blunder, by imposing such curfew and snatching the democratic values and freedoms from the Kashmiri people, which was done last year on 5th August 2019. And now the international pressure that is mounting and building on India across the globe, various international organizations, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, even within the India Amnesty International head has not only condemned India over the action and the Modi Sarkar, what it has done regarding the Kashmir status by revoking the Articles 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution and making the disputed area of Jammu and Kashmir as a federal territory. So, of course, it will have more repercussions in future as well, that now not only Turkey, the Turkish president has condemned it and once again called it a disputed territory, and
he said the plight of Kashmiris was as much a plight of Turkey as it was for Pakistan.
Yeah, sure. Turkey has supported Pakistan on every forum, and same is the case. Pakistan reciprocated on the issue of the northern Cyprus. From the very first day, Turkey is of the opinion that there should be plebiscite in the Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir Valley, and all the resolutions of the UN Security Council must be implemented. So now I think it's a big slap on the face of India that even the neighbors of India, as Turkey is not really far away from Pakistan and India, now they are calling for this injustice what Modi has done on 5th August in the occupied
But
valley.
the Indian Foreign Office says that this is an internal matter of India. That is why the Turkish ambassador to India was recalled on Monday, Sakir Özkan Torunlar, and it said that what Turkish President said Erdogan was out of context, and he was talking about India's internal matters. Are they kind of finally understanding, or will they never understand in your point of view?
Well, according to the UN resolutions, according to the debates at UN General Assembly, according to the Simla Agreement, according to international law, Kashmir, whether that is the Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, that is not part and parcel of India. Of course, any
But it will
such
never
kind
accept, but India and Indian government, especially the BJP government, will never accept that fact, will it?
Of course, because it is on the way of Hindutva. For the first time, the Hindutva doctrine has been institutionalized by the BJP government since the last 6-7 years when it came into power in 2013. And now again, what Modi has won the election. So that is on the slogan of anti-Pakistan and anti-Muslims. And this institutionalization of Hindutva, it has just, made the Hindus brainwashed. So, of course, their whole agenda, their whole politics, that is based on these issues which are anti-Muslim and anti-Pakistan.
Which brings me to a very interesting point. Is India streamlining, mainstreaming its Hindu nationalism across the country?
No doubt. Look to their judiciary, their police, their bureaucracy, their military, their government. Each and every part and field of society, they are overwhelmed with the Hindutva doctrine, and they are just streamlining. So various people, across India and across the world, they are having the same opinion.
What should be done in your point of view, Dr. Afridi? Because we've seen Dr. Mahathir Mohamad talk very openly about it. We have seen Recep Tayyip Erdogan openly talk about it, and India denying or contradicting whatever the statements have come out from these two very important leaders. Now, what needs to be done really for India to understand what it has done is wrong? I'm sure that it knows that what it has done is wrong, but how to make them really understand? Will they ever revert to the scrapping of Article 370 or 35A or the CAA that they have introduced in December last year? Will they just continue in the same vein?
I think as far as the BJP government is concerned, and as far as it continues in government, so it will be continued. But of course, there is strong opposition from the Congress party, from other parties, and even from the society, the civil society.
Demonstrations that are coming out.
And some 200 people, some social and political activists, they have also written letters to the Indian government just to be this injustice and these non-democratic norms should be stopped in Kashmir Valley. So of course, in long term, if there is government of another political party, and if there is such a mounting international pressure of India, then very much possible that again these articles would be given to Kashmir.
But there are so many internal movements that are happening inside of India. I mean, what is happening in Indian occupied Kashmir is just one of the different movements that are happening in different parts of India. If they start putting pressure in this manner on one state, won't the other states retaliate?
Yes, in Nagaland, in Mizoram, in Assam, there are so many issues. Even they are fighting for their own independent states, and how they are denying the rights of the Bengalis and also Muslims in Assam. So the whole world is witnessing, right? So I think that is even not in the interest of India, and even furthermore, not in the interest of the BJP and for Modi itself. So one day they will have to realize that they are just on the way and path of destruction of the Indian heterogeneous society, because there are so many religions, so many ethnic groups, so many languages in India. So there's not a homogeneous society.
Dr. Afridi, do you feel that India can really be called the world's largest democracy?
In real sense, and looking into the essence of democracy, I think India is not the biggest democracy of the world. Even India is not a democratic state. Yes, by population you can say, but it doesn't matter. India is no longer a secular state, and India is no longer a democratic state.
What about the efforts made by the civil society? You talked about civil society. There are also leaders such as Mehbooba Mufti, such as other Kashmiri leaders, such as actors who are openly now talking. People who never talked in the past are now coming out in the open and talking openly against what the government in India is doing to the minorities of India. Do you feel this will also or could have a repercussion on further elections of the BJP? Because we've seen that in the recent elections, they haven't really won, have they, the BJP?
Exactly. For the first time, Mehbooba Mufti and other politicians, they have openly talked and condemned the Modi policies regarding Kashmir. So even, I mean, they were pro-India, right? So if these are locked down and these are under house arrest, and they are talking very openly and publicly against the Modi policies, so there can be a huge shift in Indian politics in future generations. And even they are also cursing the decision of their forefathers, Mehbooba Mufti type people, that what their forefathers have done, and they have just put on the path which was favoring India.
Now, the Foreign Office spokesperson in India has said, and I quote, that the developments he talks about, Rajab Tayyip Erdogan's quote on Kashmir, have strong implications for our bilateral relations. Can they really afford to have such strong implications on bilateral relations with countries such as Turkey or countries such as Malaysia?
Well, they have already banned purchasing palm oil from Malaysia, but even Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has offered that Pakistan will buy this palm oil, and just to have an alternative market for Malaysia. So on the other way, if we see the Turkish import and export, so of course it has very good economy, and India cannot sustain this position of opposition to Turkey. So it will revert to its previous position, and of course by having more international pressure, then there can be substantial change in Indian policies and the policies of the Modi government.
Well, let's see, Dr. Afridi, if there are substantial changes that happen in the Indian policy as far as what it's doing to Indian occupied Kashmir and other parts of India. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this show. We've talked about two very important things: the FATF, whose plenary session begins from tomorrow, and of course to decide whether Pakistan remains on the grey list or not. We will know by the 21st of this month. And also India finally reeling under the pressure and doing whatever it feels is correct. But in fact, the whole world is trying to know and is knowing more and more openly and in a more transparent manner of what India is doing to the hapless Kashmiris in Indian occupied Kashmir and to their minorities in the rest of India. We'll wait and see how that comes along in the coming days. Allah Hafiz.